Hey everybody, Rav Simcha here. I've been thinking about Masechet Demai as I've been learning the first chapter of Demai, and there's something that was bothering me about it when I learned the Mishnah. I'm going to show you inside what I mean, but I think that when you read the language of the Mishnah, sometimes when you read what's in the Mishnah and you realize what's not in the Mishnah, I feel like Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi was sort of sending us a message. I'll show you what I mean inside, and then I'll explain to you what I think the message for us is that's so relevant to us today. Let's take a look in the Mishnah. So most Mishnah, very often the Masechta Mishnah doesn't start with like telling you what something is. But when you start with Demai, really interesting, the Mishnah of Demai starts with what doesn't have to have Demai. Hakalin shev Demai, kulot of Demai. And the Mishnah starts by telling you, here are all the things that Demai does not apply to. Now we're going to get to like what Demai does apply to, but here's a list of all these fruit that Demai does not apply to. That's the first Mishnah. The second Mishnah is all the halachot that don't apply to Demai. Hadumai ein lo chomesh. Demai, you don't have to add on a penalty. Ein lo beer. By the way, this is not Demai. This is talking about ma'aser sheni shel Demai. You just have to know that. I explained it in the Mishnah. But it's very strange because that's not what it says. It says Demai has no chomesh. Just as Demai. All things that Demai, the halachot of Demai, doesn't apply to. And it's talking in this case about Ma'aser Sheni of Demai, but it's much more than that. But Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, when he wrote it, he wrote Demai. Here's stuff that Demai that doesn't have. And look at Mishnah, the third Mishnah. All the aspects of halachot that you don't have to worry about Demai for. Right? That Patur, this is exempt from Demai. And all the things that you don't have to worry about. And you're allowed to take food from him in these kinds of cases. All these different kinds of cases. And finally, all the uses that you're allowed to use for Demai. You make a bracha on it. It's included in a zimun. Right, and you can use it for your eruv. What in the world is going on here? Like, and I can highlight it even more because when I want to know, well, what would I expect the Mishnah to be like? When you go to the Rambam and you look at Rambam, the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam explains to you the Mishnah Torah Hilchot Ma'asrot. He gives a whole introduction like I did in the times of Yochanan Kohen Gadol, right? And they checked Achar Shimon HaTzadik. They checked and they found Shekol Ziyim b'Truma Gdola. Everyone is careful about Truma. But Maaser Rishon and Maaser Sheni Maaser Ani Hayu Ameh Haaretz MiYisrael Mekilim Al Atzmam. So okay, I don't expect the Mishnah to tell me all that, but I do expect to say, okay, this is what Demai is, that's what Demai is not. I would expect the Mishnah to start with, if you go to Perek Bet, Elu Dvarim Mit'asrim Demai B'chol Makom. And here, that's what Mishnah Aleph should be. What's going on here? I think the answer is in the Rambam himself. Look at the Rambam. The problem with Demai is the following. Demai itself, what is Demai? Demai tells us that there's a whole category of people, right? He says it himself. Hayu ameh haaretz miYisrael. Ameh haaretz does not mean bad people. Ameh haaretz, the people of the land. Mekilim al atzmam v'lo mifrishim ota. They wouldn't separate it. Lefika gazru shelo yehi ne'eman al masrot ela anashim ne'emanim. They were not reliable except for people who are reliable. Okay, we have people who are ne'emanim. We have people that are chaverim. What the Mishnah is describing is the division of the Jewish people into two separate groups of people. You have the people you can trust and the people you can't trust. The people who keep all the halachot and the people you can't. And what happened is, of course, as soon as you have that, you have people that I won't eat at your house, and I can't eat at your house. And if I'm a chaver, I certainly can't take it from you because you're not careful about tuma and tahara. You essentially are creating a two-tiered system of people who are more careful and less careful. Does it sound familiar to anybody who's listening to this? Sound familiar today? And so that in and of itself, it might have been unavoidable, and it might be understandable, of course, why Yochanan Kohen Gadol made that gzeirah. But we should also recognize that it's a tragedy. It has tremendous social implications for the Jewish people. And the reason I recognize it, and I think what Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi was saying to us is, when you start to learn the halachot, you start to learn about what divides you, what separates you, or hakalin shel demai. What are the things that you don't have to worry about? What are the things you can use? The second Mishnah, demai ein lo chomesh. What are halachot that demai is like what you do? And when you go to Yerushalayim, no la'am haaretz. When the am haaretz comes up to you and says, please, can I have some tzedakah? You say, all I have is ma'aser sheni. I'm not allowed to give it to you. If you have demai, you can give it to him. You have to find a way to give to the am haaretz. Because of this, these things create such a division. To me, it's like Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi is telling us, without saying anything, before you talk about what divides you, first talk about ways to unite. First find the ways to keep halachot, to find halachot that you can have a connection, that you can use it for eruv. Go to the guy and say, can we use your challah? Can I use your bread for the eruv? Can we use it for our shituf arivot mishtatfim bo? Is there shituf? Is there partnership in the Demai? Now, the implications of this are obvious, I think. I hope they're obvious. We live in this is anything different? We live in a time of different people having different standards. I keep this level, you keep that level. And some are standards where there's an ability to be flexible, and sometimes there's not. We live near people who Jews around us who don't keep the standards. I can't eat at their house. But do we look for that which divides us? Because the idea of food and sharing food can be such a uniting factor, or it could be such a dividing factor. So do we look at those divisions, and do we create divisions in order to create a split within our communities? Or on the other hand, I think the message of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is exactly the opposite. Yes, a person who is meticulous about halakha must keep their standards. And he's not saying don't keep your standards. But when you read the first chapter of the book about the relationship between you and other people around you, or the other Jews around you, are you looking for what divides you? Or are you trying to find ways for what unites? Ways to have meals together, ways to share food, ways to create shituf, partnership and community within the Jewish people. Have a great day.